Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. One of the things that we are going to do in the wintertime is we always kind of spend quite a bit of time reading on things, and we've been doing that for a number of years. So we thought what we'd do is share today some of our favorite reads over the last couple of years.
Actually, some of this collection has been as long as we have been doing farming, flower farming,
Yeah, lots of times we go back and look at these things to
over and over.
refresh our memory or to actually research things.
So for me, the first book that kind of kicks off our flower farming side is The Flower Farmer by Lynn Basinski. I've read this one 3, 4 times. I've used it as research in the back, looking for specifics. This is the book that started it all. After I read it, and when my friend read it, we decided that we could maybe become flower farmers and sell at the farmers market.
That was back in what, 1942?
No, 2003. So we're on our 18th season of growing flowers, but I started out with another gal, and we started it growing flowers, and then she had to go back to work full time, and then Tony and I started working on the flower farming side. But this was the book that started all. It is so good. If you don't have a lot of experience or kind of don't know what to do or which flowers to grow, that kind of thing, this is the book that you want to get under your belt. Read it, devour it, and then start off on your journey, because this was the book that really helped me.
Yeah, and I think, from my side, I've always kind of been more interested in the processes of growing things. And those things have kind of always piqued my interest. Not just the plants, what type of plants they are, but basically, what's going on in there when I stick something in the ground. And that's kind of led me to, over the last few years, to kind of explore a biological approach of growing. And one of the books that I found very helpful to start on that process was Teaming with Microbes by Jeff Lowenfels. And he's also got a series of books that also teaming with nutrients and teaming with fungi, where he explores even more different aspects of it. But it gave a really good in-depth review of the soil food web and what's really kind of going on down there. And it's a kind of a fascinating world. And it's an easy read in a sense. It's not written like a microbiology textbook. So it helps people understand the relationships, and that's really what he's been going after. So that was a really good book.
I read that book also, and why Tony is way more further along in the studies, this one was very good introduction for me to understand what he was always talking about. And it is a really good, easy read, kind of folksy.
I think it's written
for the average person.
For the average person, so you don't have to have a PhD to...
Right, and that's the part I liked.
Yeah.
Going back to another book that I've used to death is the Specialty Cut Flower book by the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. This book, I just checked, the copyright is 2003. So
yeah, this was Alan Armitage, right?
This was the book that we bought when we were first part of you and I just growing.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it was Judy Loshman and Alan Armitage put this book out.
And it is a great resource. Although I've read most of it, I still go back to looking at it. I've done it so many times I broke the spine. It's just been here with us from the beginning.
Right.
And it's a great, great reference book. There's all kinds of information on even specific flowers. If you want to know something about something specific, you just looked up something just
Right.
the other day.
It's a great reference book, and it gives you things, information about the growth habit of the plant, maybe even sometimes a little bit of the history of, where it came from, how to start it, from a seed standing, or is it, from cuttings, and, what kind of temperatures it needs to be raised at. And it gives you a really good overview, talks about harvest and post-harvest treatment. So it kind of walks you through the whole process. It's really pretty good. Another kind of companion book to that is, let me reach over here off camera, is this one was put out by John Dole and Lane Greer a few years back, and it is about woodies and cut stems for growers and florists. And it's kind of the same idea. It's a survey book of all the different types of things. It gives you some great pictures in it too, in a sense of, getting an idea of how to raise your woodies, and maybe some of the pitfalls you might have with that, or some of the benefits of, how to do it. And so that's a really good book too for reference. In addition to that.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. You also have something too, kind of another reference book.
This is another reference book for me. I do the seeding on our farm, and this is a really old book, and I'm not sure you can still get it, but this is a really good book on seed starting, and just the different aspects of how to grow things from seed, what the soil components are. And I think that in some cases we've moved past even some of the information in here, but it's a good basic.
Yeah, if you're starting from a standpoint where you've not really done a lot, maybe not even much on the vegetable gardening side, because most of the stuff also applies just basically to anything you're growing.
Right.
And it gives you a really good kind of overview, and even getting down into the specifics of certain techniques and how to do it. So I mean, it's a very good book.
It's a good reference book that as you can see, I still look for stuff and highlight it in preparation to go into our greenhouse.
Yeah, sometimes we forget a lot of things.
Yeah.
So you got to go back to the books. One of the other things, when we talk about getting started and understanding the processes, there's not just the growing aspect of things, but there's also, how do you organize yourself to accomplish your tasks, or what tasks should you be doing, and what kind of tools do you need to do it. And a great manual is by Elliot Coleman, and it's the new Organic Growers Guide. This is a second edition, and I believe he's even got a third edition out where he's updated it with even more tools and techniques. But it's primarily focused on veg. But the point is, you can, we'll put pictures in so you guys can see these things in a better close up. But it gives you a really good idea of techniques, like how to turn beds over, and, what kind of amendments to use. And this kind of sections on soil blocking if you're, going that route. Some of the formulas he's used for different things on his soil blocking, irrigation, fertilization, all kinds of things are in this book. It's a really good read from the standpoint to give you an idea of how to do it. Another one, I don't have it here with it, but we'll get you a picture of it, is Jean-Martin Fortier's The Market Gardener. Excellent book. Also takes it to a different level on how to do it on a smaller scale, and pretty much of an intensive type scale. Kind of the same idea is another book along the same lines. Many people have probably heard of these books, but there's also The Urban Farmer by Curtis Stone. He did a great job talking about how he got established using actually leased city lots from people, or their backyards or their front yards. And he was able to put together, at that time, a viable business, and how he did it, and how he organized it, and what tools he used, and things of that nature. So that's a good read too. But it gives you an idea of maybe if you don't have a lot of space, on how to do something on a small space. It's not necessarily that all the same business environments now exist that existed when he did it, but it still gives you a great idea of processes and how to do it.
Interesting. I have notes stuck here.
Yeah. Well, okay.
The other one.
Oh, the Lean Farm. Yeah, there's
We
another
both
great
read
book.
that one
Um,
intensely.
Now, the problem with that is with us, it's a discipline issue. I just kind of
Well, the other problem that I found after reading this is, darn,
boy, are we making a lot of
we
mistakes.
sure should have organized this place differently.
Yeah, that was a big thing. If you're really starting out from scratch,
Yeah, read this because it just it would help you organize how you set up your farm. And for us, about 80-90% of our stuff is grown down below, and our cooler's up here.
That's because that's where the power was.
I know, but if you had been thinking that through, you would have said, how can we get power down there? I mean, our greenhouse is up here, our cooler's up here, a lot of our tools are up here. And
so there's more travel, it's one thing you don't think about when you're like lining things out. It's like, well, how many steps do you take? Well, it's not that many steps. It's only like, yeah, but when you're young, you go, well, that's not a big deal. It's just over there, hop, skip, and jump. But the thing is that everything takes time. And that's kind of his approach on this is it's about what he calls muda or waste. And it's about being relentless in identifying it and eliminating it. And he's actually so far, when he wrote this book, he was living at a different farm than he's at now. And he's actually moved closer to his customers, I guess, on a smaller footprint. And is evidently producing even more. So he's just continually, locked down his processes. And I mean, he's like a model of super efficiency on how to do something on a small scale and do it well.
My favorite part of this is his discussion of what he calls spaghetti lines or spaghetti strips.
Oh, it's spaghetti diagrams are when you look at a process.
How many steps, all going in all different
It's basically
kinds of
recording all the steps and all the paths you take.
And it's just like you start to think about that and you can find that you waste time in your life period, in your home.
Yeah, like if you're making the bed, how many times do you walk from one side to the other?
Round and around.
You just go, wait a minute.
After I read that, I started to think about how many things that I do that are not efficient. How many times do we go up and down the stairs?
Yeah.
Because we have half of our house is down below and up above. How many times do we go up and down the stairs? Okay, it's great exercise, but it's a waste of steps and time. Can you reorganize everything? And I really like this book because it
makes you think about
it makes
flow.
you think. It really makes you think of how you want to organize everything. How can you do it with the best and easy flow to be the most efficient?
I mean, one of the prime examples, and this is probably true on any farm, is like, well, where are your tools relative to the work?
How many
are your
times
tools in a tool shed that's 50 feet away from where the work's got to be done?
How many times are the tools up here and we're working down there, and it's like, where is the dibble stick? Yeah. Where is
Sometimes it's cheaper to buy multiple tools and keep them closer to where they're needed than it is to have one set of tools and have to keep walking around your farm trying to find it.
And you can only wear so many tools, around the belt. Before it's just like, that's extra weight and stuff. So, we started to think about the kangaroo bags. We started putting kangaroo bags in more places.
Yeah, just those are little bags that are fold-up bags that you can collect, small debris and stuff like that. Trimmings. Like, as an example, we field strip our flowers, so it's useful if you're in a tunnel to have that, to just strip them into that. That way you don't have to...
They go quickly into the compost
pile, yeah.
And, okay, so you mentioned if you're young, it's easy. But every year goes by and we're 18 years older.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy anymore.
Well, not only that,
it's just wasting time.
It's not just about, okay, when you're older, you want to move slower. But that's not the issue. But the issue, when you think about it, efficiency is about efficiency in time. And so if you can do things in less time, well, that may mean that you have more time to do other things in your life. So like if you have hobbies or you have a desire to spend more time
with
you know,
family,
with family or
friends.
doing recreational things,
You got
you
the
know,
time then.
you can accomplish more work more efficiently, giving you more time to free it up to do other things, whatever you want.
Okay, so me again?
Yep. What do you got?
Okay. We've moved into more growing vegetables. We've grown flowers for
Yeah,
18 years, but we've been growing vegetables since as long as we've been married, which is 38.
Yeah, 30 something.
30 something. Anyway, so I want to be able to grow year round, and I think that we can grow year round, and to reorient vegetables,
right?
To reorient my thinking on doing that, all you've ever talked of in your mind is cosmos and stock and snapdragons and all those things. You go vegetables. Oh, I don't remember what I used to do, so I am deep into Charles Dowding's.
She's big on Charles Dowding.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram. I would take the class, but
what is it that Kathy Bates said? I'm your biggest fan.
I'm your biggest fan. Well, it seems like his climate is similar to ours. Yeah. And we're no-till. He calls it no-dig. Same idea. He's big on composting, and we're working on that too. Mm-hmm. I just need to remember when to start stuff. And so I'm following along in these two books and what he's doing, when he does a YouTube video on what it can grow. And I mean, it was just the other day we watched one and he had all this beautiful stuff and he was saying, yes, and I just put it in July. And I'm like, I don't even think about that.
Yeah, July. When it's really hot in July, you're saying, "Hey, you need to be starting to seed your, kale."
And you go, "What?" The winter. That you're going to eat in the winter, and it's just like I was supposed to be thinking of that in July. Oh, back to the book. So this is what I'm into: is big time vegetables. I'm not dropping the flowers. I can kind of do that one. Kind of in my sleep a little bit, but vegetables, I gotta get back knee deep in this, and so these are my two favorite books that I'm constantly looking at, going, what do I get?
He's got a whole series of other books too. The guy's been a writer for years.
These are just the current new ones, and we even have others. And you have some on Kindle or something, don't you? Wasn't it? I don't know. These two are my current favorites. These are ones I'm reading.
Yeah. One thing about Charles Dowding's place, he's like what they call a maritime climate, which is similar to Western Oregon. He's a little bit farther north. He's actually like, I think, a 54th latitude or something like that, and we're like 45. So it'd be kind of the equivalent, if you're looking at the west coast of North America. He's kind of like up there in northern British Columbia, so to speak, and we're down here in Oregon. So it's kind of like...
It's close enough.
Yeah, he'd be like 500 miles further north than us or something like that. So, I mean, it's still fascinating, though, that the climate is as seasonable as it is. He doesn't get much snow. He gets a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy days.
He had snow.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But you should check out his channel, his video channel, and if you want to be really, put to shame about how to have absolutely no weeds, his place is pretty cool.
Pretty nice. It's something to strive for.
Something to strive for. He's got a system. Some of the things that we're also doing from the veg side is we're trying to be a little more resilient in terms of raising things that are what you'd call non-hybrid, non-F1 hybrid, that are more, heirloom is a word for it, but that's not really as totally descriptive. It's basically open pollinated plants, and a lot of them are older varieties that have been around for years. But what we're doing is we're going to be doing seed saving. So like one of the things, particularly we save the seed on tomatoes, because there's some really great spinach. I did that one. We'll see how that one worked out. But it's green leaves, so green leaves are yeah, it's pretty good. But we needed to understand how to do it. And there's a great book by Suzanne Ashworth called Seed to Seed. And again, we'll put photos down here in the corner so you guys can get a better look at it. But she goes through a whole variety of different types of plants and what do you need to do to harvest the seed, dry it, and save it, and put it in a secure storage so it's still viable. Goes through the whole process, and it's a really good book. So what we're doing is we're saving seed from things like spinach, our snow peas. We did kale, radish, and tomato. And we had some open pollinated pumpkins, but these things kind of they were growing really close together.
Not sure what we were going to
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get, but it's probably still edible. But sort of that kind of thing. And the idea behind it is to also too is you keep selecting. One of the interesting aspects of this is you keep selecting seed every year from the best plants that are best adapted to where you are. You actually end up with stronger, more viable plants over time because you're kind of culling out the ones that don't really do well in your climate or your soil or your conditions, and you're favoring the ones that do. So you keep taking those seeds. So over a period of time, you're going to end up with a set of plants that are pretty well adapted to where you're at.
You can also end up with some really funky.
Yeah, we had one. We did this years ago. It crossed an acorn squash crossed with a zucchini, and it created a summer squash that had ridges like an acorn, but it was oblong like a zucchini. It was
oblong and kind of a big bottom.
Yeah, it was weird.
And we called it a zoocorn.
A zoocorn, yeah.
And when we cut into it, it wasn't
the flesh wasn't very good.
Very good, but it was. I kind of regretted cutting into it, but
yeah, but it was interesting.
It was interesting.
But the plant looked like a zucchini. We thought, hey, it's a zucchini plant,
Yeah.
And no.
And your last book.
Last one. This is one that I've been working on now for several months, really since kind of the pandemic started back in March. I kind of got into this idea because of the pandemic and our personal situation. We're not able to go out and around, shopping sprees and getting all kinds of stuff.
I've been here since March 11th.
Nursery supplies and things like that have been kind of limited for us. So one of the things that caught my eye was and this is kind of an out branch of Korean natural farming, which we have been doing for several years. His Master Cho, son Youngsang Cho, developed a system he calls JDAM, which is kind of an acronym in Korean, which means people of nature. And it's an organic farming technique that he kind of combines, I guess what you would call more ancient, or ancient isn't the right word, but let's just put it this way, historical Korean natural farming techniques and some Japanese techniques and some of the techniques that were used in China for centuries in terms of, making your own fertilizers and using microorganisms, indigenous microorganisms to your area. And he put some new twists to it on how to do it. He also kind of took it a step further, and there's a whole section on developing his own pesticides. I haven't really gone into that side of it because I've been more focused in on the soil side and the fertility side. But he makes his own. He has a recipe for making your own insecticidal soap, and it's really quite simple. And he's also got some things for how to, get sulfur compounds that you could be using as an antifungal. So, I mean, if you really want to get in depth in terms of using herbs and things of that nature for, pesticide control, he's actually developed some things that have actually been pretty effective. And the thing about it is most of the stuff is available on your farm. You don't really have to go out and buy anything. So as an example, when you save money. Yeah, we did a video series recently on JDAM microorganism solution, and basically the only thing you need to buy is sea salt and a potato. If you have to buy a potato, you can raise your own potatoes.
Which we're gonna do.
but basically it's cheap, and it's a cheap microorganism solution that is actually making some pretty good progress on. We've been using it in one of our tunnels as a major
It's
test.
noticeable.
It's made a noticeable change in terms of eliminating a compaction layer that we had in there, and that was right below where a broad fork could get to it, but it was causing basically drainage issues. So in the wintertime, what would happen is water, surface water, if it did percolate into the tunnel, if like a heavy rain event or something like that, we would get kind of more saturation in the soil than should be there because the water couldn't drain through that compaction layer fast enough. And what's been happening is that compaction layer is disappearing.
It works.
So this stuff works.
But it's still a learning process.
Yeah, because this was translated from Korean into a number of different languages. You can actually get this on Kindle now if you wanted to, if you can't get the hard copy of the book. There are some things that are, when they translate, you kind of get inconsistencies, and you kind of got to think about it a little bit on things. As an example, some of the application rates are they don't put into context. They may say in one paragraph, oh, apply this, 1 part or 10 parts per, and per, so many parts of water, like a 10-to-1 dilution or something like that. And then consequently, 15 pages later and talking about it, they say, oh, the application rate should be, closer to, 1 part per 100. And you go, well, wait a minute. You just said 1 to 10. No, well, what you have to do is you have to kind of read it a couple of times, and this is what I found. And think about it. And it's the context of, well, the difference between a heavier application is when nothing's growing on it and it's brand new area and you're trying to condition the soil versus when you have a maintenance level of what you're trying to do with growing plants on it, and you have to start thinking about, well, what is it you're applying and why does it work? And those are the things that, that gets back to, thinking about microbes again, how they're working in the soil and, what's in solutions that you're putting in the soil from a biological standpoint. So this has all been kind of really fun for me because it's kind of like a big chemistry experiment, but it's
back in school,
but it's actually, I'm kind of working my way through it. And this book has been, super, super useful for just beginning to understand that there's a lot of stuff out there we don't understand.
So that's kind of the total of...
Yeah, some of them are current reads,
and
some of them are ones that we just, we did over the last year or two. And some of them are reference books.
Some of them we've had for years.
Yeah.
And if you saw the library that I posted on YouTube and Instagram, this is just a few of many. There's all kinds of other books we've had that talk about root celery and
right. Pottinger garden.
Pottinger. I listened to it 3 different ways. And design in flower designing when that was part of what I did. But, we've kind of shown you this is what we currently spend a lot of time looking at and, delving in and talking about. And so we find these are really good, helpful books if you're interested in growing. Not necessarily, if it's vegetables that you only read those books and they don't apply to flowers, because that's not really true. It's the concept and whatnot that you can take something you read about in vegetables and apply it very easily to flowers.
And sometimes there's books too that maybe you don't want the hard copy of it, and Kindle is a great option. I've gotten a lot of different things off of Kindle as an example. A book I've been reading recently is Farmers of 40 Centuries, which was written back in 1908. And it was about this guy's, who was an agricultural expert in the United States, went on a tour of Asian countries to explore the Asian methodologies of how they were farming at that time. And this is before the advent of, for Asia, tractors and chemical fertilizers and all this other kind of stuff. And he really went into, talking about the culture, the time, the areas he went into, and, why they were doing what they're doing, and how they managed water, and how they managed, everything from, waste products, and how they recycled them back into plantings and things of that nature. So that's a really pretty fascinating read. Also, too, what you might want to check out is another author, Steve Solomon. He wrote a great book called The Intelligent Gardener, and what that really delved into was the mineralizing aspects of your soil, and what he had found in his experiences in Tasmania and in Oregon, because he was the founder of Territorial Seed Company way back in the 1970s, before he sold it off and moved to Tasmania. But he delves deep into, the roles of different minerals and how they affect plants and how they actually interact with each other. So that's a very good read too, if you want to understand, really get nerdy and get into things like that.
Nerdy.
Well, and there's some other books too. There's another one that I recently read by I think it's Nigel Palmer. And it's about making your own fertilizer amendments. It's kind of his trip through kind of the same thing that I'm kind of working my way through now, and how he used natural, low-cost things on his farm to improve his fertility and his management practices. So
there's a lot.
There's a lot of really good books out there. So
it was hard to pick just this pile. Oh, there's some over there.
Yeah.
But.
So,
we had so many requests to say what our favorites were, and we were only going to pick a few. Kind of got really deep.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, I think, at least for me, it's like my orientation is to working with the natural systems. And so understanding, I guess what I'm striving for is I believe all the natural resources you need to be effective, excuse me, in using the biology on your farm are probably within reach of your farm. And you shouldn't have to pay an arm and a leg for special things. So, I mean, there are times when you may have something that just isn't existing in your soil or something, and you have to, do some supplementation. But for the most part, I guess what we're trying to get to is a system that is recycling things as much as possible. Nutrients that, don't leave the farm should be returned back to where the growing areas are. Really work on the biology to change the system such that, you aren't fighting constant weeds and you're fighting constant problems. So that's kind of been our focus on this.
Natural.
Yeah, natural.
BT and back to nature.
Oh, that sounds so 1970s.
I know, but that's where I'm from.
So I want to thank you guys for watching today. And, if you have any questions or anything like that, we're always open to.
And if you're interested in any of these books, a lot of these books are on our Amazon store.
Yeah, they're either on the Amazon store or, like I said, if you can't find a print of it, lots of times they're on Kindle.
Yeah.
And, if you've got a reader or even your phone, I use my phone, it works.
I like my hard copies.
Yeah, hard copies are good if the electricity goes out. Definitely.
Yeah.
But so I want to thank you guys for watching today. And as always, stay safe out there and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. See, I did the point too.
Yeah.
Bye. How do you turn this off?